be taught before it's too late.
To speak, both my wife and I, Suzanne, about teaching Sunday school, and I didn't know where to begin. It's been a long time. Should I talk about the amazing Boston trip or the sweet preschoolers I've taught for more than 10 years? I realized how silly that was because the preschoolers become high schoolers. They do it again. I think they're going to do it again. The transformation from curious and silly toddler to thoughtful and caring teenager, whoops, didn't seem like it took 10 years. The teenagers are still curious and silly too. So, my mom texted me the other day that she'd rediscovered the word schadenfreude, or pleasure in the pain of others. And I knew that word, and I quickly said, I do too much of that. So this is my chance to tell you about the opposite, which is joy from the joy of others. The teaching downstairs has certainly given me a lot of that joy. It happens downstairs every time I get to teach. It happened in Boston, too. And here's an example. As a veteran of many nonprofit board meetings, I dread paralysis by committee. I want to do the work of my chosen charity. I know governance is essential. Someone has to keep the lights on, but I hate committee meetings. When we were in Boston, we participated with another church group, UU church group from Portland, in a discussion of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And the leader of the activities was explaining that some of the language was a little bit old, some of the pronouns were sexist, but it was really hard to change that language because it took a lot of work to get that declaration adopted. And R.E. Stevens, one of our students, said, it shouldn't be hard to change, here's my eraser. No committee needed. That's the kind of creativeness, creative thoughtfulness that we get from those teenagers. No committee. Closer to home, I've been a preschool teacher for many years, and I've seen many tears as parents left the room with assurances that they'd soon be back. But I think the courage that our kids have starts down there in very small steps and gets bigger. Several of those kids at Boston had never been outside of Kansas City. I think of Eliza and Lincoln. They were 4 and 3 at the time. Big brother, little sister. And as the mom left, her lower lip started quivering. He reached out his hand, held it, and it made me really, really proud. Finally, I wanted to talk about the Ask a Teen bulletin board that we ran a couple years ago. Members could ask teenagers questions that baffled them about teenagers using note cards. We'd go through those questions and try to get back in the next week. Is Nelson here? I think this is the questions were anonymous, but I think it was Nelson's question. He asked what on fleek meant. And we had a big debate. The kids could not decide. There were too many answers. It was just so obvious, but I'll explain it right now. I don't know if he's here, but bout to crunk, eyebrows on fleek, expletive deleted. These are the words of Kayla Newman, credited with coining the slang on fleek for something perfectly executed, kind of like the teaching program. None of these experiences happen without work. Someone has to coordinate 20 people's travel arrangements and fundraising and thinking about crafts for 4 or more groups of kids to get the materials to make an example of a butterfly or a collage or dry bean rattle. Judith and Melanie have carried that water for a long time. I'm very appreciative for that because that gave me the opportunity to have these experiences. Thank you, and thank you for supporting religious education.
Good morning. I'm Suzanne Rainey, and as you've already heard, we've been doing this for a while. I just want to point out that Henry, who will start his freshman year in high school tomorrow, was a toddler when Judith first asked us to teach Sunday school. And I also want to say that it's really been my pleasure, and I know Bill would say the same, to get to be in this position, because by asking us to do this, Judith really was asking us to be a part of this community, and that's really been the very best part. So I've stood up here before and talked about the kids, and they are awesome. They are learning, when we've taught the little kids about butterflies and wind, and the older kids are learning about world religions, and the teens are writing their own theology and figuring out their own beliefs. They are alive, they're curious, and they're happy to talk about anything, and as true UUs, they're usually quite happy to offer an opinion. But today, I don't want to talk about the kids. I want to talk about something else, and I'll start with a story. A couple of years ago, I walked downstairs to teach the first, second, and third grade class. And I think I'd only been recently promoted from the preschool class. So I was still working on the lessons. The lessons on wind were a little bit easier. As I settled it, we were settling down in our circle of knee-high chairs, and as we were just about to light the chalice, one of the children looked at me, brow wrinkled and frown growing, and she asked a little bit hesitantly, "Excuse me, but where is Pete?" And she was referring to Pete Allard, who is also a first through third grade teacher and probably been teaching a lot longer than I have. I said, "Well, Pete isn't here this week. I'm teaching this week." I thought that would do the trick, but the students' hesitance quickly disappeared, and I sensed growing outrage. Now, one of her friends was joining in, and the other children were starting to frown too. "But where's Pete?" they demanded. I have to admit being a little taken aback by this, and my ego was a teensy bit bruised. I mean, I'm fun too. But as we got into the lesson, I had to admit they were right. Pete's way cool and fun and smart and patient, and he's not the only one. The youth of this church are lucky to have many adults like Pete whose kids are no longer in Sunday school, and sometimes they didn't have kids in Sunday school. They just came downstairs to help our kids anyway. They make an impression and they make a difference. One night earlier this summer, I went to fill in for one night at the summer camp. And I was blown away by the fact that most of the professors and adult volunteers, including Barbara Griggs, who organized much of the camp, didn't have their own kids attending. Yet for 5 evenings, they donned their robes and raised their wands and came to church to have fun teaching and cleaning or cooking or monitoring the door. When Judith organizes the Mystery Friends, many of the adult friends are no longer directly involved with RE, with their own kids or grandkids, but they go all in, making meaningful connections and truly make our kids feel a deeper belonging to the church. And when the coming of age group traveled to Boston, Bill was one of the chaperones, but there were others who didn't have kids on the trip. But they spent 7 nights of their summer in a youth hostel to be with these kids. So it's really a gift. And so that's what I wanted to talk about. All of the adults in this church, like Pete and Barbara and so many others, who make a connection with our kids by giving their time and talents and love. Would I have taught Sunday school when Judith asked me all those years ago if I didn't have kids? I don't know. I don't know if I would have, but honestly, I'm glad that a lot of these adults have made a different decision, because it makes a difference to these kids and it makes a big difference to our church.
Okay, this is just as scary as it was when I did this last time. And forgive me, my computer died this morning, so I have to read my talk off my phone. My name is Rebecca Brennan. I've been members of this church for 3 or 4 years now. I can't quite remember. But a few months after my husband and I joined All Souls, Judith came to us and asked us if we wanted to be teachers in the RE program. We, of course, said yes. One moment. So Bernie started teaching the preschool kids, the young ones, and I started teaching the 4th and 5th graders, which I still teach the 4th and 5th graders. Bernie has since graduated to the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd graders. But I also roam around to wherever Judith or Melanie needs me. And the 4th and 5th graders just have this abounding energy that I wish I could bottle sometimes and use for my own. And the younger kids, they are always ready to give you a hug when it is needed. And sometimes it's needed a lot. This year, the 4th and 5th graders are learning about the Bible. Growing up, we were, one moment, I just have to make it a little bigger so I can see it. Growing up and learning about the Bible, the religion we were in, there was not a lot of room for questions. Questions were not approved. Certain passages were cherry-picked to show that our religion was correct and everybody else was wrong. And now that I am teaching the 4th and 5th graders about the Bible, I appreciate the fact that questions are very welcome, and they can form their own opinions about what is being taught. I have enjoyed watching the kids learn about the stories in the Bible and grow to appreciate their value from a story perspective, not necessarily a truth factor. They are also learning to appreciate the differences and the similarities of different religions. My own boys, Zach and Aaron, have also benefited from the RE program. At the church we attended before, we would have fights every Sunday. Mom, I don't want to go. Don't make us go. We don't want to go. We have we are not happy here. Don't make us go. Since we have joined All Souls, I don't have fights in the morning. It's amazing. They get up, they get dressed, they're ready to go. I am so glad. And they are excited because now they get to attend class, and they get to discuss the different religions and many other things with the other teens. And they get to share their own opinions. And they get to have questions. Questions are welcome. And on those occasions that we are not able to come, they are very disappointed. And they have enjoyed visiting the Jewish congregation, the Catholic Mass, and many of the other churches that they have visited. They also had the opportunity to go to Boston with the coming of age group, where they made friends. They learned a lot of the history, which a lot of it they can't remember now. But they had a lot of fun. And Melanie makes planning our lessons really easy because we don't have to do anything. Shh. She goes through the lessons and chooses the activities that would work best for that age group. And she plans the crafts, and she just does it all for us. It's great. And Judith is always ready with praise for the teachers and appreciation for how much time we put in and what we are doing. And she is always really ready to help when and if it is needed. I have really enjoyed teaching and getting to know the kids. I love to see how they grow and develop into individuals with ideals and values of their own. Thank you so much.
Get my young man eyes on here. Good morning, everybody. Like the sign says up there, my name's Jason Lichten, and I've only been a teacher here for barely a year, and I've only been attending here with my family for a year, so right now my memories are not as plentiful as some of my other colleagues, but I do have quite a few already obtained that have me very excited about the future, I'll say. Now, when we first came here to All Souls as a family, I was just merely looking for a peaceful place to practice my faith with other like-minded individuals like myself, and really what I wound up walking away with so far has been a lot more, which is a very, very good thing. And at this point in time, when I first started attending here, I'd already been very active in the scouting community as a Boy Scout and Cub Scout leader and a den leader, and for at least, 5, 6 years at the point when I first started attending here. And at that point, teaching children how to camp and fish and cook outdoors was very rewarding, but there seemed to be a missing little ingredient there for fulfillment, and that was the spiritual side of things, and which many of you probably are aware of, we're not allowed to teach that in any way, shape, or form. So that seemed to be really missing for me, and to be able to share that kind of spiritual education with children. And so this was about the time I met Reverend Judith here. Just seemed to be about a perfect storm and just the right ingredients waiting to happen. And she could tell right away that I had a passion for teaching and wanted to get more involved with that side of life. And she proceeded to tell me, and I quote, her words were, "I have a place for you." We both share, Reverend Judith and I, we both share a similar belief that we can make a significant change in this world through our children. We both believe that we can get ahead of our hatred and bigotry in this world with the right education and the right direction. In just a few months of joining the education program here, I realized I would be able to put one of my favorite hobbies to good use. Most of my life I've loved studying religions from all over the globe, I've always had a constant pursuit to find the connections between all of them. I believe that most of the conflict caused in our world today is based upon our differences in faith and our misunderstanding of those differences. I also believe that bringing education into this equation can narrow those similarities. We can rid ourselves of our fear of one another. That fear can easily manifest into hate, and we all know what comes after hate. Reverend Judith has given me a perfect platform to share the knowledge I have obtained with a great format. The young adult group, I like to call them, or the teens. Together we have traveled to several different churches of different faiths and denominations from a list that they created themselves. And together we have discovered and found the relationship between these different faiths and Unitarianism. And this is just the beginning of this trip, which I am just excited about. This has barely touched the surface. And like I said, I've barely been doing this for a year now, and this is just barely skimming the surface. So I would very much, while I have the opportunity, I would love to thank Reverend Judith here for giving me this opportunity to share this with the young teens and with all of you. And shoot, while I have the opportunity, every great team, we have a wonderful team here, and I can say that. It's an amazing team of educators, but there's no good team without a great leader. So I would like everyone to give a round of applause here to Reverend Judith, because talk about an amazing leader. She gives us that sense of direction and that sense of focus. We have a good plan. We have a good heart. We know what we want to do, but without her guidance and that sense of direction, it would probably be quite more scattered. So thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone.
Please rise in body or spirit and join with me in singing hymn number 128, For All That Is Our Life.
For all that is our life, we give our thanks and praise. For our gifts that we use to build the common good, we give our thanks and praise. For all of you in this All Souls Village who help to raise and support our children, We give our thanks and praise. For our religious education teachers who love, nurture, and inspire our children, we give our thanks and praise. And we give our thanks and praise to all you children who brighten our days in so many ways. Let us go forth to continue to share our gifts and to live our dreams in our corner of the sky.